Okay, just want to start by saying thank you so much for taking the time out to sit down and chat with me. I suppose we should start
Yeah,
right to the beginning. How did your love of being on stage, how did you get into sort of the performing world?
it's a good question. I started by an event I now kind of co-run. Is called Nerd Night here
Hmm.
in Cambodia, where I live. And I started doing presentations. The idea is that every 2 weeks you get five or so speakers who give short
Hmm.
presentations, but the catch is every slide moves after exactly 20 seconds, and every person gets exactly 20 slides to do that.
Ah.
So it's an event that we run, and I started by doing a presentation, and that was terrible the first time. And then my next one went pretty well, and that was like a little bit funny. And then a few years later, I was part of the organizing committee, which I'm still on now.
Hmm.
And I guess I started getting involved with presenting then, and I'm
Hmm.
also obsessed with spreadsheets and started doing a lot of public speaking around data
Hmm.
management and spreadsheets, both face to face, doing training courses and doing seminars and doing online stuff as well.
Hmm.
And that's kind of how it started. And then in New Year's 2022, me and my friend made a pact that both of us would start stand-up comedy, and he had a baby, and I started stand-up comedy. And I did a training course 4 years ago,
Hmm.
and then I really, really loved it. And over time, I started to do more and more stage stuff, and
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
eventually came to Edinburgh Fringe last year for the first time, 2025.
Oh, amazing. So obviously you mentioned there your love of spreadsheets. I'm also a big fan of spreadsheets. We were talking off camera about how I'm planning my Edinburgh Fringe visit using a spreadsheet to kind of all dates and times. So has that always been a love of yours? Has sort of IT and tech been something that you've been really passionate about?
So I started my career as an accountant,
Hmm.
and I had probably an average level of love for spreadsheets as for an accountant, which is definitely higher than the norm.
Yes.
But my knowledge of Excel at that time was, I'd say, not particularly high, but it kind of came in more strongly when I moved to Cambodia in
Hmm.
2013, and I was doing accounting for a non-profit,
Hmm.
so helping them with their annual budgeting. And part of the things that they wanted was a little bit of help with spreadsheets. So I did a little bit of teaching of stuff, but as they asked me more questions here, I had to research the answers. And then I got
Hmm.
more and more into it and started really being obsessed with it. And I bought about like 10, 20 books from the how for on the Four Dummies range about
Hmm.
spreadsheets, subscribed to loads of YouTube channels as well. And yeah, eventually I started offering training courses in Excel and then started doing it as part of my business as well.
Hmm. So obviously, like the stereotype for people who are into tech is they're kind of quiet and reserved. But obviously, you're
hmm
taking this to the stage, which is kind of the most openly in front of people sort of thing. So what made you want to bl blur those two worlds together of sort of express Excel sheets tech with sort of performing and being on stage?
So, as I mentioned earlier, I've been teaching Excel for about 12 years,
Hmm.
and for a similar time, I've just been known in pretty much every one of my circles, professionally and even socially, as the Excel guy.
Hmm.
So people would come to me with Excel questions, and they would they would mock me for being the data guy, the Excel guy. But what I began to realize was that so many people just wanted to talk about spreadsheets,
Hmm.
and it affects so many people's lives quite a lot in the
Hmm.
sense that pretty much anyone in an office job is using spreadsheets, and people in certain jobs like finance or sales or HR using them extensively, but it's not something they ever talk about. So they would see me as the Excel guy, and they would just come and talk to me for ages about how proud they are of the formula they built or
Hmm.
the data model or the pivot table that they finally managed to get working or the way that they chose to do the interactive dashboards. And then I get the other side as well. I get people talking to me about how much they hate spreadsheets and how it's the bane of their lives and how they have to do it, but they're no good at it, or how they hate that their assistant always edits the cell that shouldn't be edited. So after all that, I started to think, well, It's something that everyone to some extent really cares
Mm.
about, and why not create a comedy show about spreadsheets?
Mm.
And so I did it last year, and I had a sold out run in Edinburgh Fringe,
Oh.
which is
Mm.
awesome. Yeah, especially for a debut performer, it's very, very
Yeah,
rare.
totally. Obviously, you talked about the sort of making it comedic and building the show. So when you
Yeah,
initially had the idea to take the show to the Fringe originally, what was the
yeah.
show building process like of putting it on stage and putting it together?
So, as I said, I started stand-up comedy 4 years ago now, so February 2022. And my first set was to do with Cambodia, where I live. My
Mm.
second set was about Excel jokes because I already had this idea that people are into that stuff.
Mm.
And with that, I wore this t-shirt that I got given by Microsoft. It says, I love
Nice.
Excel. And I talked about doing stuff and spreadsheet jokes related to it. And that performance bombed. But I had the building blocks in place. And then my fourth performance was again about spreadsheets, and that one went pretty well. I kind of
Mm.
made some new jokes, refined some jokes. But ever since those first few performances, I had in mind that maybe I could create something and take that as a full show. And then I built the show progressively,
Mm.
doing little bits in other sets, like 5 or 10 minute blocks, and then refined it through that. Mostly in Cambodia, but also when I would travel around to London or
Mm.
other places, I would do segments of it. And then a friend of mine, actually, who's a comedian who I met on the comedy circuits, um, Scott Redmond. So he's based in Dundee.
Mm.
And at one point, he said to me, he's like, you might be onto something with this Excel thing. And we have a small fringe festival in Dundee, and maybe you could try and do a show there. So this was for 2023. I built a show. No, sorry, I'll go back. So for September 2024, I built a 45-minute show about spreadsheets, and he gave me a lot of guidance, and
Mm.
he knows the organizers of Dundee Fringe, so they took a chance on someone who's not had that much experience relatively in comedy to do a show. But then it went really, really well.
Mm.
What the show does is it combines standard stand-up comedy with also some tech demos in Excel that are made comedic through crowd work and other things,
Mm.
and some personal storytelling as well. And the show went pretty well. And then once it went well there, I thought, right, well, now I've got to apply for Edinburgh. So I applied for it the next year and brought it up from 45 minutes to a 60-minute show, expanded the maths angle of it because the show is Excel Comedy and Mathem-antics.
Mm.
And so uh, I have some math jokes as well and kind of incorporate it all
Mm.
together to a show that eventually went to Edinburgh. Then I applied to Just the Tonic, which is one
Yeah.
of the companies that does events. And oh, actually, this is a nice fact. After doing the show in Dundee, I went over to Edinburgh. It wasn't the Fringe time, but I
Mm.
just went over to
Mm.
sort of have a look and see what was going on, check out some venues. I didn't know
Yeah.
Fringe very much at the time, so everything was closed. But I was told to go to this place called the Caves, because that's where my friend Scott had done a show a
Mm.
few years back. I went to the caves, and outside the caves, it was closed because it's a private hire venue and a nightclub
Mm.
sometimes. But outside on the door, there's a sign that says, "He who is without mathematics shall not enter." So I saw that, and then I was like, right, this has to be
Mm.
my venue. And I wrote that in my application form, and then they gave me a room in that venue.
Mm.
When I got to Edinburgh last year, though, what I realized was that they put up some temporary fixtures and
Mhm.
fittings to do with Just the Tonic running it that would actually cover that sign.
Oh no.
So no one got to see that sign. I was really upset about it. But but actually I'm going back to the caves this year because
Mhm.
it was really nice working with Just the Tonic, and they gave me a bigger room because I sold out a 60 seater
Nice.
last year. So I've got a
Yeah.
120 seater this year. Um yeah, that I'm really excited about.
Mm. You mentioned coming back to the Fringe this year. What was it like getting that call or getting that notification that you're returning?
So yeah, it was pretty good. The way that it so the way that the applications happen is you choose different companies,
Hmm.
and there is certain companies that manage multiple venues.
Yeah.
You've got a hierarchy. You've got like the Free Fringe. There's two companies that do that, and then you've got what's called the Big Four, which is
Hmm.
Underbelly, Pleasance, Assembly Rooms, and Gilded Balloon. And then you've got the ones in the middle. So just the Tonic is one that's in the middle
Yeah.
of it. And I applied to a few this year, but just the Tonic, they worked with me last year and they were
Mm.
really good to kind of get back to me and be flexible about the arrangements that I wanted. And from a money perspective, it also works out better
Yeah.
there because you've got the more prestigious venues just cost a lot more.
Yeah.
And I get it. They do a lot more
Hmm.
services for what you're paying for. But for me, coming from Cambodia and adding on a lot of costs like that,
Yeah.
just the tonic makes sense for me. Although I am going to be bringing a second show to Fringe this year, actually.
Oh.
It's not yet published, but just finalizing the details now. And that's based on, I was mentioned Nerd Night earlier, which
Hmm.
was this presentations event. So I'm going to be doing a version of that at Fringe.
Oh.
So me and this guy Scott Redmond, we're going to be putting this show together, and we're going to be finding comedians from around Fringe to be doing short presentations about their nerdy passions.
Oh,
And
wow.
then there's going to be about three or four presentations on
Hmm.
each day. And then the final one is going to be an improvised thing where we create the slides and the comedians have to pretend to be experts on the subject they have nothing about. So
Wow.
it should be
Yeah.
quite fun.
That sounds fantastic. So I look forward to seeing
Hmm.
that announcement come in soon. I know they
Yeah,
do
yeah.
waves with the Fringe. But you said that the first time you came, it was a sold out event, which is fantastic
Mm.
as a new performer and all that stuff. Do you think there's added pressure this year for you returning to sort of meet that standard?
So it's a good question. I think that yes, to some extent.
Hmm.
So the Fringe Society, the organizers of the Fringe as a whole, they're super helpful,
Hmm.
and they were for me in getting involved. I had a couple of calls with them and went to their webinars and looked at their resources. And what they say is that you need to know what your goals are going into Fringe.
Hmm.
And some people go there to sell out. Some people go there to make money. Some people go there to try and be discovered. Some
Hmm.
people go there because they want the experience of being on stage, all sorts of reasons. And I think what I said to them in my meeting last year, they were like, "What's your goal?" And I was like, "I want to sell out my shows." And they were like, "Whoa, calm down."
Mm. Yeah.
For a first time performer, that's a lot. But I mean, I work towards that. And I think a lot of the reason why they sold out is merely because, as I said earlier, a lot of people care about
Yeah.
spreadsheets. And people weren't buying a ticket to me because I'm not a known quantity, but the
Mm.
idea of spreadsheets, whether they love them, whether they hate them, or whether they just have to put up with them, they find the idea, the
Mm.
concept interesting. So I think this year I'm trying to rethink what my goals are. As I'm getting a larger venue, doubling in size, I'm not looking to sell out. I think that's an unrealistic goal. I think this year I'm going to try and sell as many tickets as possible,
Hmm.
but also to kind of network and find my way around the Fringe. I'm going to do my other event, which is similar to
Yeah.
nerdy TED Talk type event. So yeah, so I think I'm not going with the same goal, which kind of takes the pressure off a little bit, but there definitely
Mm.
is that pressure, yeah.
Yeah. And so how are you getting ready then? I know obviously you've got those two events that are going on at the same time. How are you preparing? How are you getting ready for that journey?
Well, in 4 days, the Adelaide Fringe
Hmm.
starts in Australia. And Adelaide Fringe is the second largest fringe festival in the world after Edinburgh. It is much smaller,
Hmm.
but it is still fairly sizable. So I'm taking my Excel show over to Adelaide Fringe I'm doing 15 performances starting on the 7th of March, so not quite yet,
Hmm.
but I'm really excited for that. In preparation for that, I went to Singapore to do a preview of my show last week,
Wow.
and I'm doing it now in Phnom Penh in Cambodia where I live this weekend because I haven't done the show for almost 5 months, so I
Hmm.
need to
Yeah.
be able to have done it in order to get there. I am also kind of amending the show a little bit, so it's going to be probably about 20% different to the
Mm.
show that I brought last year. I'm still marketing it as the same show, but I've just learned
Yeah.
some things and enhanced some things, and also Excel's moved on a little bit as well,
Yes,
so
yeah,
I'm including
absolutely.
some new tricks from that as
Oh,
well.
nice. And obviously, you mentioned they're traveling from Cambodia. So does that journey add pressure to you as a performer, taking the show from Cambodia to, well, anywhere, Singapore, and all the places you're going?
So yeah, I think it's a bit of a longer journey
Hmm.
to get over to places. I also help run the comedy in Cambodia scene here.
Hmm.
So we have a very small scene, but we do have something, and we have opportunities, probably about 4 or 5 shows a month.
Well,
So it means I do get to perform
mm,
in those shows, and we do some training courses for new comedians who are interested in it as well. Sometimes I speak French, and sometimes we do shows in French as well. So
mm,
I kind of try those things. And going over to other places does kind of add on the pressure, but I think it's got some pros and cons
yeah.
because I think I could very quickly within my first year of comedy just become one of the people who was most involved in Cambodia and in the
Hmm.
country. I will say it's in English. We have a an English language scene here. The local people have a lot of comedic things that they do, but it's different to the
Yeah.
stand-up comedy art form that we know in the UK.
Hmm.
So I guess I was able to do that and then build a show on that and then take it
Mm.
elsewhere. But whereas on the other hand, I don't get as much stage time as new comics do in a place like
Yeah.
London or Sydney or or even smaller cities around the UK.
Mm.
So yeah, it's got pros and cons, but I think for me it's kind of worked well. And because I was already doing a lot of Excel stuff, this has been a show that's in my mind has been kind of building for
Mm.
many years before I even started stand-up comedy from my love for Excel and role models I talk about in my show as well.
Mm. So we are coming to the end of my questions. I have a couple more. So for
Yeah.
people who haven't seen your show or heard of Excel Comedy before, what can they expect from coming to see your show?
So the show is comedy about spreadsheets and maths,
Hmm.
more about spreadsheets than maths, but they both come into play. It's a mixture of stand-up comedy, where I am just standing with a microphone, and then there is also a screen that I use. So I'm doing some jokes that involve some punchlines that come out on the screen using slides. And I also have some segments where I'm on my computer showing some demos in Excel that's also got some comedic elements
Mm.
to it, where I do some crowd work within that. And I offer prizes for people who get my questions right. And then one of the reviewers last year described that part a little bit as like a magic show reveal,
Mm.
where for Excel enthusiasts, I know from my copious amounts of teaching Excel. I know the features in Excel that everyone would use, but no one knows they exist because
Hmm.
they're hidden or because they've just never been shown them. So I know that I can get those wow moments from it. And then the last part of the show is kind of a storytelling aspect about how Excel and maths have been influencing my life and things like that. So it's a little bit more
Mm.
personal. Yeah, and that the show is kind of an amalgamation of all of
Oh,
those things.
fantastic. So where can people stay up to date with you and the show?
So I have an Instagram. The Excel Comedian is my
Hmm.
Instagram account, and you can follow me on there. I also have a YouTube channel with about 22,000 subscribers
Oh.
where I have tech tutorials. So it's not really comedy,
Mm.
but I've got a lot of tutorials about how to's, mostly in Excel, but I also cover a lot of other things like Google Sheets and Microsoft Teams and Canva and Word and other applications that people might use at
Mm.
the workplace. And I tried posting a couple of comedic videos on that channel and they just do not work. My audience is like, we're not here for that. We just want to know Excel tips. So yeah, my YouTube channel is there. And then on LinkedIn as well. I've got about 12,000 on LinkedIn where I
Wow.
post, again, mostly kind of tech tutorials
Mm.
of blogs and webinars and YouTube clips that I make about spreadsheets.
Mm.
But I also post, yeah, life updates and stuff about my comedy there as well.
Mm. Amazing. So I'll put links in the comments below so people can scroll down and click away. But my
Thank
final
you.
question is, what advice do you have for young performers looking to do what you do?
So, a few things. Number one, Fringe is amazing,
Hmm.
both as a punter and as a performer. There is nothing like it in the world.
Mm.
What I learned when I was there was that Edinburgh's August festivals combined, which include the Fringe and much, much smaller, but the Military Tattoo also and the Edinburgh Festival, but essentially that together becomes the third largest ticketed event in the entire world.
Oh,
Number one
wow.
and number two being the World Cup and the Olympics. So it's absolutely
Mm.
enormous. And it's really just such a wonderful atmosphere. If you are a new performer, I would say just go to the Fringe. If you're a comedian, try and see if you can get some spots
Mm.
on existing shows. There are loads and loads of compilation shows that do take on up and coming performers, and we'll just give you a few minutes where it's whether it's stuff like uh, clean humor or dirty humor or I don't know, a lineup of Asian comedy
Mm.
showcase or LGBT performers or anything that
Yeah.
you can go into, female performers, you can find a slot in there. And yeah, you can get to know it. And it's really good for networking as well. Well, I would say if you have a show that you want to apply with, then do your research before. I think a
Mm.
lot of people said to me, you won't know Fringe until you do it the first
Mm.
time. The first year, you'll be walking around not knowing what's going on. And I said to myself, no, I want to be prepared. I want to know what's going on. And then I was, and I did
Mm.
loads and loads of research. The Edinburgh Fringe Society put on a lot of resources through webinars and one-to-one chats, and their website is really extensive as well. So you can be researched, and
Mm.
it was by doing that that I knew what to do, and I was able to sell out my first Fringe, which
Mm.
is pretty
Which is
cool.
fantastic. Amazing. So that's all the questions I have. So as I said at the beginning, thank you so much for taking the time out to sit down and chat with me. Um,
Thank you,
I've,
Rhys.
as I mentioned, I'll put the links in the comments below so people can scroll down and click away. I'm very excited to see your show for my first time in the Edinburgh Fringe this year. So I'll look forward to seeing that and best of luck, and I shall speak to you soon.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thanks for inviting me.